Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Family, thank you for joining us for yet another beautiful Sunday. It's beautiful because you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor, and we are 101 Jam Charlottesville's #1 for R&B, hip hop, and classics. And yeah. So we have a great show as always. I mean, it's what you come to expect, right? From IMHO. And we are going to be joined today, bottom of the show, but none other than our friends from over at Let's Talk. For those that don't know, you're going to be introduced in for a pleasure. It's Charlottesville has a public access channel station, and these ladies are doing great work when it comes to conversation for the community and from their perspective. So can't wait for them to join us. Middle of the show, there's a stage play going on upcoming soon. Jefferson always has great stuff going on, but Abiyoyo is a stage play coming up that's directed by some locals, Jess Harris, Xavier Taylor. They're going to be joining us today as well, family. So we never know what me, Miss Max, may be up to with what we may be talking about today, but we listen to you. So it's definitely, we hear what you want us to talk about, and so hey, you got to stay tuned. Never know what headlines we may hit for you, what the Ask Max may be. So yes indeed. But without further ado, we're gonna get into this show today because we are joined by some of my favorite folks, especially when it comes to this time of the year, bringing arts to the area like no others. Talking about my friends Ilya and Jody from over at the Virginia Film Festival. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us again for this 2023 season.
Charles, thanks for having us on. Always look forward to being part of this show.
Yes, indeed. We definitely appreciate it. So, for those who just may not be as familiar for whatever reason, let's go ahead and introduce yourself. So, Jody is a staple. If people don't know the face, they definitely know the name, right? I know Ilya has just been here a couple years now. So go ahead and give, the listeners a rundown of what it is you guys do, and then we're going to lead right into this year's 2023 Virginia Film Festival.
Well, sure. I'm Jody Kilbasa. I serve as Vice Provost of the Arts at the University of Virginia, and also this is my 15th year serving as the director of the Virginia Film Festival, which is one of Charlottesville's very largest, in fact, Central Virginia's largest cultural events, happens each and every fall.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on. My name is Ilya Tovas. I'm the senior programmer for the Virginia Film Festival. As you mentioned, just a couple of years in, and really excited to be here in my role alongside Jody and some of our guest programmers, helping to shape and curate the program of films and conversations that happen during the festival, October 25th through 29th.
October 25th through 29th. Thank y'all once again for joining us. I must say, it seems like you guys, get better and better each year, especially when it comes to the presentation. Before we even get into the films, tell us the work that goes into the actual kickoff, right? So when you start planning the way that you're going to reach out to the community, right? Especially to our listeners and whatnot. I'm like, what goes into that planning when it comes to how you want to reach the community to get them excited for another year of the film festival?
I'm glad you brought it up. There's a lot of work. There's a big team or it's not that big, but it's more than just the two of us. I'll say that. We work throughout the year in terms of finding the films, making sure that we can position them and have the studios and distributors and press agents, everyone that we work with, allow us to have this great program. In terms of getting it out to the community, we then work with organizations, different departments in UVA, different nonprofit and arts organizations throughout Charlottesville, community interest groups, to make sure they're aware of the program. We have some 70 guests coming in, and on top of them, some 70 moderators and other folks from the community at large that are helping to lead the conversations and help us spread the word. So it's a big undertaking. We're really happy to be part of the fabric of Charlottesville and larger community here.
Nice. Good stuff. And Ilya, I definitely want to, give you kudos because when I met you last year, you definitely Jody's right hand man. Jody, you've been doing a good job before. Don't get me wrong. But it seemed like last year, things just kicked up a major notch. So, give give Ilya his kudos.
Well, I have no problem giving Ilya props for the work that he's done in last year and this year, his second year with the Virginia Film Festival. You know, for several years before that, Ilya was also a guest programmer. He was with the Washington Jewish Film Festival in Washington, D.C., but also programming a series of films for us every year for several years before that. That's how we got to know him and the skills that he was able to bring to the table. So he's living here in Charlottesville, part of the Virginia Film Festival now, and we're thrilled to have him. And I think you're absolutely right. He's helped elevate our game.
That's right. So let's get into it. You know, like before we dig into any of the particular sort of themes of it, right? You know, go ahead and give us the overview of sort of the overall theme this year, you know, and you know, as far as the thought process that went into it, you know, in the selection of this year's lineup.
You know, I think each and every year, we want to stress that this is Charlottesville's Film Festival. It's a festival for the community. It's about the community. We always have local and regional filmmakers that are involved that are presenting films. I think you're going to have one of those, Tanisha Hudson, on air with you a little later in the show. So it's about bringing the community together in a celebration and an exploration of great films, the art of filmmaking, storytelling. You know, the great things about this the film festivals, we're able to screen well over 120 films during the festival. And so imagine it's a real broad canvas that we can paint on. We can explore a lot of different themes. We can open windows up into other communities and cultures and see what's similar and also celebrate hopefully what's different about those cultures. So a lot of great international films. The Black Excellence program is really, really strong this year. And I think that this is far and away the most diverse lineup of artists that we've ever been able to assemble in one festival. It's really an extraordinary lineup of artists. And, you know, that was a bit of a challenge this year. We had a writer's strike up until about 2 weeks ago. That got resolved, but the actors are still striking. So yet we somehow managed to land upon some really significant people coming in. Ilya, you know, please chime in. What do you feel about that?
I mean, I want to just go to your first question in terms of the themes. So the festival, we bring together really the top films that are contemporary and current. Out of the 120 some films that are in the program, we only have one that is out, and we can talk about that one a little bit later. But all of these are brand new films. They're not yet in theaters. Some of them will never be in theaters. We're talking about international films, student films, animation. And we don't consider ever a single theme, or at least not in many years we haven't. We're really looking for a cross-section, intersectionality of different series. So Jody already hit on, we have a series called Black Excellence that's celebrating achievement in African-American culture, history, etc. We also have a series on Indigenous cinema of the Americas, a series on nature and environment, a series on Korean cinema, and the series go on. And that's really the way that we conceive of it, not a singular way in, but really making sure that the festival is representative and diverse of new voices and perspectives out there.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Oh no, you're good. Yeah, she can share with me, so we're good. Yeah. Miss Max is in the building, in the booth, snuck in like that. Got your Superwoman cape on and everything. Yeah. So yes, indeed. So again, we are joined by Virginia Film Festival, and you know, as Jody and said, and we're also joined by Ilya. We are going to have Tanisha Hudson on in just a few to also plug in and talk about her short film that is also going to be featured this year. So, and you actually got Max's friend coming to visit, Nikki Giovanni. You know, not too many people in Charlottesville has Nikki on speed dial like Miss Max. So, you know, I'm just saying. But yeah, so like even when I look at the folks that you have coming in this year for the actual in person and the awards that they're receiving, the recognitions, give us a little background on that as far as what went into the selection for those who are being recognized and invited in person this year.
Well, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it was a little challenge this year to navigate because, you know, we were smack dab in the middle of a writers and actors strike, which immediately meant that writers and actors were not available to us. And of course, the writers resolved their strike a couple weeks ago, but the actors are still negotiating. And so as a result of that, we don't have that many actors coming in, but we've landed some really exceptional directors coming in, some exceptional artists like John Batiste and Nikki Giovanni, who are just crazy amazing. So I feel good about where we landed. We're opening the festival with a film directed by Bradley Cooper, starring Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan, that looks at the life and career of Leonard Bernstein, cultural icon, celebrated American composer. And we have the makeup artist who's won 2 Academy Awards, Kazuhiro, coming in. And I think Ilya can expound upon this as well. One of the things that we want to celebrate and take a look at is people who are responsible for making the films. And Kazuhiro has won 2 Academy Awards for his work on the film Bombshell, but also on The Darkest Hour about Winston Churchill that was out several years ago. Celebrated makeup artist, and he was responsible for all the makeup in this film. And we're going to recognize him with the Virginia Film Festival Craft Award on that opening night, and also have a discussion with him immediately following the film. Second night, and I'll turn this over to Ilya. We have this amazing film called American Fiction. Ilya saw this at Toronto, and I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. That continues along the award conversation as well. So we have 7 awards in total. And as Jody mentioned, we're looking to give them to really a range of people that are behind the screen, in front of the screen. Oftentimes we focus on 1 or 2 names in a given production. It might be the director, it might be a star actor, but anyone that sat through the list of credits for a studio picture. I mean, it goes on for minutes, and that's because you have oftentimes literally hundreds of very successful artists that are pouring their heart into this work. And we want to make sure that we're spotlighting all of them. So on the second night, as Jody mentioned, we are very fortunate to be screening American Fiction, which won the People's Choice Award at the Toronto International Film Festival. And I bring this up because if there's one award statistically that is the most correlated to Oscar success of any film festival award, it's exactly that one. If you look over the last 10 or 15 years, whatever film like Green Book, for example, that ends up winning the People's Choice Award in Toronto is almost always nominated for Best Picture, frequently wins Best Picture at the Oscars. So if you're beginning to fill out those office brackets, we're starting to give it some thought, it's worth checking out American Fiction. And there's many other reasons it's worth it. This film is at the same time incredibly poignant and serious and thought-provoking and hilarious. It'll have you rolling in the aisles. This is a film by Cord Jefferson, whose name might not immediately ring out, but his credits will. So he's making the jump, and we're giving him the Breakthrough Director Award because he's making a jump from writer to director. And as a writer, he was behind shows like Succession and Watchmen. He was nominated for and won Emmys for these productions. And he's made the jump into the director's chair, taking on Percival Everett's book Erasure in making American Fiction, and it centers on Jeffrey Wright in perhaps one of the top 2 or 3 performances of his whole career, one of our great actors, and he's playing a African-American professor who is an author deemed quote-unquote not black enough, and it constantly is pushing his face that he's sort of not black enough. He's got a great quote in the book, says, "I'm black and I write books, how much more black can I be?" But they're just not getting picked up by literary industry. He's getting incredibly frustrated with this. And in one night of just taking it all out, almost as a form of protest, he writes this book. And this manuscript is chock full of every single horrible, ugly stereotype you can think about minority culture and black culture, stuffs it all in there, forces his literary agent to send it out. And you might guess what happens next. It's not thrown back in his face and said, what is this? But instead, Hollywood comes calling. The agent gives them a huge deal. They say, "This is exactly what we've been looking for this whole time. Thank you for channeling this voice." And he's caught in this sort of weird place because he actually needs the money. He needs the acclaim. He wrote the book under a pseudonym, and he's trying to skate between sort of commodifying the black image and the minority image and staying true to himself. Right. And it's just so sharply written. It's incredibly funny, but it's also incredibly thought-provoking. Skewers this whole idea of how we treat black and minority culture. And Cord Jefferson will be on hand, as I say, the writer and director and producer of this film, to have a conversation with Bilal Qureshi from NPR on stage after the screening. Should be great.
Oh, that is awesome. That's good stuff. Hey, when I'm hearing you saying that as well. Well, first that storyline rings so true, right? So family, that's definitely one to check out. like when it comes to sort of staying true to who you are, but also succeeding. You know what I mean? Like I know within the African American community, that is something that is a consistent sort of balance. It's a balancing act. So that definitely sounds intriguing story. But as you were talking, it made me think, has it become easier, or is it still a sell to get folks here to Charlottesville? Like, when it comes to the folks, like, is the Virginia Film Festival to that magnitude? Because I believe it is, but I'm on the inside looking out, right? Of folks saying, "Oh yeah, Virginia Film Festival, I got to be there, wouldn't miss it." Or is it still a sell to bring people to Charlottesville, Virginia?
I don't think it's a hard push. I don't think it's a sell to make that happen. But I got to say that every year, the last couple of years, we're hit with a curveball, right? You've got, going all the way back to 2017. We had the events of August 11th and 12th leading up to the festival. We were fortunate that Spike Lee came in that year because he actually wanted to have a dialogue here in Charlottesville with our community, and that was great, and that was a lucky break. But then you get hit with a pandemic, and nobody wants to travel in at that point. Right. You're just lucky to try and get audiences back as we were coming out of that. This year I think we've seen a real sea change. Our films are filling up. They're selling out. Really sense that the audience is ready to come back. And again, the curveball this year were the strikes, right? And you got to kind of deal with that and navigate that whole landscape. And yet, again, we turned up some amazing artists. I mean, it's fun to me. And again, Ilya, I'll point to you to talk a little bit about Space Race. But we have one of the very first Black astronauts who also happened to be drafted in the NFL and also happens to be a UVA alum returning with a film called Space Race. And to me, it's really kind of fun to see the diversity of this lineup where you have just this amazing cultural icon in Nikki Giovanni coming in, who is a poet, and you've got an astronaut, and then you've got somebody like Ava DuVernay, who's extraordinary, and talk about a coup and having her come in with the U.S. premiere of her film Origin, and then you close the festival with John Batiste. And I saw this film in Telluride just a little over a month ago. It was just blown away by his humanity in the film. Also his musical talent, which is sheer genius. He just really is amazing. He's classically trained. He comes from music royalty in terms of his family, all mostly being musicians from New Orleans. But also just the humanity that you realize during this film, which is about him wanting to create an American symphony based on African American and Native American sounds, but also early on, the film takes a bit of a turn because his soon-to-be wife is diagnosed with the reoccurrence of leukemia. So it becomes a very personal struggle for both of them as they work for her to overcome her illness, how it impacts them, all as he's working on this new American symphony. He's going to be here to talk about that film along with the director Matthew Heineman, who's been nominated for an Oscar, but he's also going to perform on the stage at the Paramount. So, we have this,
I was going to ask that.
We've got this just amazing lineup of talented artists, not just filmmakers, but artists who all have very unique voices and perspectives, all in this amazing cocktail that's going to happen over 5 days right here in Charlottesville.
Sorry. So quick question, in the same vein of trying to sell people to come to Charlottesville, and you talk about curveballs from a more broader sense, but I'm thinking about bringing it more locally, those curveballs that happen locally, right?
Sure.
So you have to figure that in choosing your films and in being associated or part of UVA, then there's an element of politics, right? That may come into the type of films or individuals that you're reaching out to. And then the narrative of individuals thinking Charlottesville just isn't what it used to be, right? And being regretful maybe that they purchased a home here or set up roots here or what have you for the various things that have happened in this community. And then the issues in terms of, let's just like homelessness that the city is currently dealing with, or police community relations that is also a big issue that we're dealing with locally. So bringing that your response more locally, how then do people respond, or what are the type of curveballs, so to speak, that you're dealing with when you're reaching out to people and saying, hey, come to Charlottesville where we're dealing with all these issues that you're probably hearing about, and talk to us or show your film or what have you?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, for people who care about issues like that, I would hope that would be not a deterrent, but an opportunity to have a platform to come in. I think Ava DuVernay is a perfect example of that. I think that's somebody who wants to engage in a dialogue with our community.
And I would agree with that, but then there's obviously a lot of other people that would say maybe not so much for different reasons.
And I'm sure that's the case. I mean, there's, we're certainly not the only community in our country that's struggling with many of the issues that you talked about. San Francisco, Portland, you name it. There's a lot of urban areas out there, and I wouldn't even say that we're really that big of an urban area, right? But nonetheless, all the things that you mentioned are problems throughout the country. I think sometimes because of all the focus on what happened on August 11th and 12th, this seems to be, an attractor for a lot of negative publicity, some of which can be justified, right? But I don't know if it's, worse or better or indifferent in terms of these issues happening across the nation. There's certainly issues that sometimes we have films that are able to touch upon these issues, and we get to engage in a dialogue. Not all the time. Sometimes the films that we screen just aren't reflecting those issues. But more often than not during the festival, we have a couple films that do touch upon a lot of these issues. And to me, that's one of the great benefits of the festival is, again, it provides a platform to engage the community in a discussion. And somebody might, you might not go, if you're just publicizing a discussion or a lecture or whatever the case may be on one of the issues that you mentioned of homelessness or, sort of overbearing community policing, whatever the case may be, people might not show up to that, but very often they'll go see a film. And if the film's covering those issues, they're pretty comfortable in that format, having a discussion afterwards. So I kind of see that as a great way to bring the community to engage them around those areas.
I also have to say, as somebody that's relatively new, I only moved here 2 years ago. So I'm not deeply steeped. I'm certainly excited to get to know this town and have really enjoyed living here. What the perspective I bring to it, and just individually, is that at a lot of festivals, because that is somewhere where I have had experience. I've worked at many of the top festivals and regional festivals and roles throughout the last 2 decades. A lot of festivals will put on what we call sort of quote unquote issue-driven films, discussing some of these topics, and they don't always find an audience because it feels like a lecture. And something that I've truly seen here is I think people want to engage with these issues. Some of them are difficult to deal with, like you're saying. They're not necessarily all entertaining and fun, and I'm going to show up to the theater and put my worries aside. But I'll give a few examples from this year's program that I think relate to what you're talking about, and I'm happy to hear differently or to talk to these points. So Jody's mentioned Ava DuVernay a few times. She's coming in here with the U.S. premiere of her film Origin, which what Origin does is it takes a look at Isabel Wilkerson, the Pulitzer winning writer. She recently wrote a book called Origin, The History of Our Discontents, which deals with what goes into the making of racism. And the way that Ava DuVernay captures this story, because it's quite dense, it's quite intense, and it would actually be really hard for a filmmaker that didn't have the talent that Ava DuVernay does to bring this to the screen. And the way that she humanizes this story is she follows Isabel Wilkerson's personal life and her decision to write this incredibly challenging book, which a lot of people, academics and others, told her, do not write this. She got serious pushback. And she felt like she had to write it. And the reason she felt like she had to write it were a few specific incidents in world events. And one of them was Trayvon Martin and the tragic incidents there. And one of the other events, and the reason she's chosen Charlottesville to open, is the events of August 11th and 12th in Charlottesville. So she specifically said, I know this is still an open wound and this still needs to be talked about. And this can't just be cast off as, a minor part of our history. It's not that to her. And she wanted to come and talk about it in this community. Switching gears a little bit, and we'll come back to that one, I'm sure. But we have an award that we always give to a local filmmaker. And this year we're giving it to Ricardo Preve, who's coming in with Sometime Somewhere, which is not just a local filmmaker that happened to make a movie based here, but what he's talking about is issues of Latino migration, and specifically the welcome and sometimes lack thereof the Latino migrants are receiving at Charlottesville. The film is entirely shot here, and it deals with some really thorny issues, and I think it does it honestly, and it does it with beauty, and it lets these people talk about their real life experiences, some of which are very hard, including the welcoming here. But that's something that we wanted to uplift. And again, it's not just us uplifting it. I think we're finding, and we're already seeing in just the interest in this film, that people want to talk about these issues here. We have films like For the Taking from Danny Wagner, who's another local filmmaker, recent grad from UVA, that actually takes on some of the housing issues here. And it's done in the form of a comedy. I'm not saying that it's, hard-hitting documentary, but at the center of this comedy is actually the lack of affordability, and especially during COVID, trying to figure out how to scratch together and pay your rent check. And so I think there are ways into these themes. The shootings of last November are something else that dealt with in our local shorts program. And I know you're going to have on Tanisha Hudson, who's in that same program with a different film. We have a current student who is very good friends with some of the football players, telling an incredibly powerful and poignant tale. And again, some of these are not fun stories. They're not the kind of things you think I'm going to go to the theater and just laugh. But here you have an audience and a community that is receptive to having those conversations, catalyzed by the screenings. And I think that is really incredible and should be celebrated.
There's one thing I want to quickly add. It's not my role or Ilya's role to lead these discussions. It's our role to provide the platform for the discussions to happen. And that's what we try to do. We're not necessarily experts. We haven't directly experienced some of these issues from time to time. We're certainly aware of them. We certainly care about them. But by screening these films and having the artists and the people who are directly involved in the making of the films or subject matter of the films themselves, you can really start to engage the broader community. And so that's essentially what the festival does. Hopefully it brings that community together to explore these themes.
Yeah, and I would say no matter how you, broach it, it's as long as the point is made, right? So like if using comedy is what it takes, to get a story told, if that's what engages the audience, then by all means, so I think that's great to have different perspectives and vantage points. Yeah. And speaking of which, I know something that Max, have mentioned every time you guys come in as well is the local youth and talent. And I noticed on that Saturday, once again, you're going to have more family-oriented production, and it looks like there's even some work that's been done, with some local youth. So tell us about the engagement of our youth that's interested in theater and film.
Sure, I can kick this one off. So we have a couple of different approaches to youth. So one, we have a family centerpiece, as we did last year. This year it's with a beautiful, nearly wordless animation called Robot Dreams that has been receiving warm reception at international film festivals throughout. It centers on a friendship between a dog and a robot who get separated early on. It's really about the power of friendship to oversee. And I think adults and children alike can actually learn a lot from this film. It's beautiful. It's sort of easy, but it captures you and it'll have you thinking for a while afterwards. And that's playing with a short film called Starling, not from Pixar, but from a filmmaker that's worked at Pixar and with Pixar a lot. So the animation there is also top notch. And then in terms of embracing sort of student filmmakers, we have a couple of programs that I'd like to point to. We're once again working with Lighthouse Studios and centering the shorts that their student filmmakers are making. And for the first time, we're also working with something called Next Generation Storytellers, which is based out of Hampton, Virginia, working with the Hampton public school system. We're bringing in 26 of their students to experience the festival, show their work. We're giving them backstage access to do independent meetings with filmmakers, touring them around town. And I think it really is about supporting the next generation and generation after that. And have the arts sort of be a filter through which they experience the world and share their stories with the world.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, and so we're about to bring Miss Tanisha Hudson, local hometown hero, and she is behind the Martinsville 7 story. So, but as we bring her in, though, I like the way that the series and the themes are packaged, right? Like it makes it, sort of digestible. Right. So what's the thought process there as well? Because of course I can imagine that after you put together, once you package it so beautifully, it has to be something where you're like, man, like, well, we could have like included this topic or that topic, like, so at the end of the day, like, what's that thought process and that creative, piece like when it comes to getting these series and themes down pat?
Well, I mean, you can never 100% represent
Right.
everybody and everything. It's just impossible. With 120 plus films, we do a reasonable job of it, I think. And I think that part of the series that we've done, there's some mainstays. The Black Excellence program has been, something we've done for a number of years. Israeli Jewish films, LGBTQIA plus films. There's other series that sort of have ebbed and flowed a little bit and that we continue to add on to. Ultimately what we're trying to do is reflect the community that we live in. So we're trying to make sure that we cover that. Again, it's unfortunate because there's always going to be an additional series. Maybe there's always going to be somebody that's left out. But we hope that, during the course of at least a couple of years, we're covering almost all the bases here in Charlottesville, that we can represent all sorts of different parts of the community fully. And at least that's our hope. And whether they're actively engaged in the festival or not, at least some of those stories from various communities are being told and experienced by others. And I feel that's important too. And we are trying over time, and we've made some inroads to, reach out to really, really diversify our audiences and bring people in that might not think this festival has been for them. And I saw a lot of strides forward last year. It was interesting just to take a look at the audiences. They seemed more diverse. They seemed younger. So that felt good. So maybe there was something that happened during the pandemic, and maybe time of, the program changes we've made to better reflect the community are starting to gain ground. And I'm hopeful for that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, thank you all, Jody, Ilya, and stick with us. But we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll bring in Tanisha, and she can continue sort of the discussion when it comes to the Martinsville 7 film and how that fits in this year.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
IMHO family, we are joined by none other than reps from the Virginia Film Festival. The 36th annual is going on October 25th through 29th. So make sure you hit the website, virginiafilmfestival.org, about how to get involved, get those tickets and all that good stuff. But stay tuned. We will be right back to talk with Tanisha Hudson. IMHO Talk Show. Tell a friend, tell a friend. Yes, yes, yes. I am HO Talk Show, still here talking the good 2023 36th annual Virginia Film Festival going down October 25th through 29th. And as promised, we are sitting here with none other than our homegirl. It's been a minute, Tanisha, but thank you for coming back. Thought you forgot about us, you know what I mean? I thought you blew up and stuff. You know?
Let's be real. When the last time I got an invitation?
You always welcome, you know that, sister. Always.
Voice heard everywhere.
But hey, you know, we are glad that you could join us here with Jody and Ilya, because you've been working on a project, and I know a lot of folks know, but for those that don't, want you to give them the rundown and make sure that they know that it is part of this year's lineup. Due Process, Martinsville 7 story. So give us the backdrop, like what led you to this story about the Martinsville 7?
So in 2018, we went on the first pilgrimage down to Birmingham. Shout out to Andrea Douglas, who worked on that project at the time, along with Jelaine. And when we got to Danville, it kind of went left.
How so?
And we were watching a movie
I was about to run out of town or something.
So we were watching a movie at the time. And the movie basically was kind of it just like put Black people down, and we had just came off 2017, and we were like, don't say that they were indentured servants, like call them slaves, like. I think it was just a built up anger and frustration that we had, upset with Charlottesville and UVA about how August 11th and 12th and July 8th was handled. And it just wasn't really the time for us to be there at in Danville. And we were at the Daughters of the Confederacy. And it was just it was a lot to absorb. It's kind of like a white person going to a slave castle in Africa and understanding what your ancestors may or may not have played a role in. And it was more so of us understanding what our ancestors may or may not have endured. So it was like a complete opposite flip. And we had just got back from Africa too, from the some of us from the slave castles. And I mean, going in a dungeon and walking deep down in those dungeons, you could still smell the death and the way that they probably defecated on one another. And I mean, these are deep, dark dungeons down in the slave castle. So in Danville, I then met Chad Johnson. I was introduced to Chad Johnson. And I was introduced as someone that did documentaries. And Chad was like, well, have you heard about I said Chad Johnson, I'm sorry. Chad Martin.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on football. It's Sunday. And Councilman Chad Martin at the time was like, you a documentarian? Have you ever heard about the Martinsville 7? I was like, no. So I spent the entire pilgrimage researching the Martinsville 7, taking notes and documenting things. And I really wanted to do the project. I wanted to do the project actually in 2019 when I finished A Legacy Unbroken, the story of Black Charlottesville. But then the pandemic happened. In the summer of 21, it was brought back up. I was reached out to someone, and they told me that they didn't have anything to work on, that we should work on that project. And we started working on it in 2021. And this was like May of 21. By September of 21, they were issued a populist pardon by Governor Northam. So things just started to align and kind of fall in place for us at the time to make this project happen.
That's awesome. In due time.
And then I was researching production companies. I ended up finding an all-Black production company out of DC by the name of Tim Collective. I actually have a family member that works for them, and I wanted it to be Black men to actually work on the project, because me being a Black woman, I can only tell the story from a certain angle, but I can't really tell it from a Black male perspective. So I partnered with one group, and then I partnered with 10th Collective as the production company. And of course, always Sared Davenport, that's my
Yeah.
right hand go-to.
Yeah, and we got him online, by the way.
Good.
So-
I'm glad you could come on, Sared. And we made it work. And then the community of Martinsville, from Chad Martin to the descendants of the Martinsville 7, the Martinsville 7 Initiative, to Liz Ryan and her legal team that worked on the pardon, and Pamela Hairston, who's been researching this for a year. She put it in the she made sure it hit the congressional record. She brought it up. She worked in DC. She's been working to kind of make something happen with the Martinsville 7 for a very long time. She doesn't get a lot of credit for her work, but she's been going strong, writing op-eds, publishing the congressional record that the Martinsville 7 was brought up in.
So what did you hear was the reason why that story wasn't being told by a local person?
So I tell you, I think the real reason is fear.
You ain't never scared.
I ain't. I think
especially in rural areas that happens,
Absolutely. I think the real reason is fear. I think it's something that people really don't want to talk about. Right. I want to give a shout out even to Jody and Ilya for allowing the short to even be seen. A lot of people still don't know. They don't know the story.
Were the locals willing to talk to you about it?
Some were, some weren't. And we're not finished shooting. I still have about, give or take, 2 full weeks of shooting to do. But I think it's the level of fear and the connections. This is a deeply connected story. Highly connected to even the UVA Law School, because some of the attorneys that were present during the trial are connected to the university. So and
so like I said, we do have your partner Sared Davenport online. So Sared, I wanna ask you, and Tanisha can chime in as well, of course, but like what do you hope that folks will gain from this, as far as showing in Charlottesville Film Festival? Like, what's your hopes that the conversation, the discussion, the action will be after people view this film?
For me, I think that it's just more of the story that's never been told, right? I think we are all operating off of a social narrative that is incomplete. So it won't only be a good story for Black people, but it should be a good story for everyone, because it will, put more pieces to the puzzle so that we can have a more complete social narrative. And we will be able to, kind of live differently when we have a bigger picture of what really happened, in Martinsville, but, other places too. These stories need to continue to come out so that we can have a complete picture and live differently because of it.
Nice. Thank you. Very well said. Very well said. Of course, brother Sared Davenport. But Tanisha, also, I want you to answer that as well. Would you, like what is it about this to where you feel like people should come see it, and like what you hope they take from it?
So I think it's just the time that we're in, and we're in a social movement, right? We're in a reformative state, and we're in a real deep reformative state for people of color all over the world. What we do know is that Black people have definitely been on the end for not receiving due process in the judicial system. And in order to get social justice reform, we do have to revisit tough situations like the Martinsville 7 to realize the mistakes that were made and how do we prevent ourselves from making them again. And then also taking accountability. I'm big on accountability. I don't think that there's ever a time to not be accountable for actions that have affected people. And these men aren't here. I don't want to say that I necessarily speak for them, but I will say that the work that I've done and continue to do definitely speaks for them, their families, and others that have been in this situation. So it's more about doing the right thing for me, and it's always the right time to do the right thing.
That is right.
And what are you hoping that telling this story will do for us as a people, as a culture?
I think it puts a light on there's many issues like the Martinsville 7. This is just one. And it just so happened to happen here in Virginia. But we've seen many others come out who are still alive to tell their story, right? We've seen the John Bunns and the Central Park 5. They're alive and able to talk, and these men aren't able to talk. So it gives us the opportunity to dig deep and to find more issues like this, to free these men. We don't know how many people are sitting in jail that really didn't commit that crime. And if DNA wasn't fully examined the way it is today, if it was examined the way it is today as it was back then, some of these people will be free.
I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of empowerment by telling our own story.
So I think it's really important for us to tell our own story. I sound like a broken record saying that. I've been saying that since 2016, 2017. It's just important for us to give it in a way that it's not centered around fragility. We don't have to be fragile with it. We don't have to hide the truth anymore. I think it's okay for us to want to always put the hope and the faith behind the work, right? I'm definitely not against that. But I think we have to get away from not feeling like we can't show the cruelty and the pain. Like we're expected to always get the pain, deal with the pain, and keep moving on. And sometimes we need to show the pain so others can feel the pain so they can say like, man, that was wrong. And I think that's how we invoke the change that we need, because, keep sugarcoating and putting up, plaques and making it sound good for the majority of all, that's cool. That's good. But we need to tell these stories to generate a movement that then gives us resources to keep going, because our history, we just don't know, and we won't know it unless we go digging. Somebody had to tell me, and I had to dig for this. It wasn't something that I knew about.
Yeah. Tanisha, thank you. Thank you as always for always being a voice and putting things out front that needs to be told and needs to be heard. So any closing comments? I want to bring Jody and Ilya back on too to make sure people know how to reach and how to get involved, how to get those tickets as well. But any last words to the listeners about this year?
So the Due Process Martinsville 7 story, it's a short. It's not the whole film. Let me make that disclosure, because some people think it's done. It's not. Will be screened on Sunday, October 29th. At 8:30 at the Valley Crown, and you can get tickets on the Virginia Film Festival website. It's in the Commonwealth Shorts section. I posted it on my social media. If you're interested in going and need the information about a ticket, please reach out. And I just want to again shout out Jody and Ilya at the Virginia Film Festival, because this is a huge opportunity for someone born and raised from Charlottesville. I'm born and raised from Charlottesville. I've been to the film festival events. I bought tickets this year to see a couple of films, Nick Giovanni, Ava DuVernay. We need to support this. If you're a Black creator, if you're any creator, you should support this. And the way to get your name out there, I didn't get picked with my first film, but you keep tugging away at it. Sometimes a no is a different opportunity for a larger door to open. And I think things happen at the right time when they're supposed to happen. So my first short didn't make it in. I kept plugging away. And this one, it made it in. And I just want people to not be discouraged. Like, you going up against people like the Nick Giovannis and the Ava DuVernays who are coming to this film festival. But it's a great way for you to network and to put your name out there and to get your work to the forefront of larger individuals with mass, following. So don't be discouraged. Keep going. If you're in it for the work, then when it's your time, God is going to always make sure that your time to shine comes when it's supposed to. And I thank them for realizing how important this story is and giving me the opportunity.
So do you personally see a future in filmmaking?
Maybe.
Okay.
maybe, but if my work of fighting for us leads to film, and that's the direction I'm gonna go. I believe in us telling our stories, even if our stories are painful. If that pain makes us gives us the change and gives us the resources that we need to be the change we need to be for our people, I'm all for it. So
there you go.
Absolutely.
And thank you. And I wanted you to know as well, you got some kudos as well. They said, thank you for bringing this forward to the community, Tanisha and Sarad. Looking forward to the VAFF event and what emerges beyond.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. So Jody or Ilya, closing comments as far as folks reaching out, participating.
Well, I just want to say to Tanisha how much I appreciate her and what she had to say. First of all, to go out there on a limb and to tell this story, which is what the festival is all about. I think I've tried to communicate that earlier in this program, is that the festival is about filmmakers who are storytellers and sharing these stories, but also as a creative here in town, your attitude coming in saying, okay, I sent a film in a couple of years ago, it wasn't accepted, but this has been, and you kept at that, and taking advantage of the festival as a resource for creatives here in town, because we do bring in some incredible filmmakers and guests, and they want not only to share their story, but hopefully to share their skills and expertise, and also to learn from people here in town. So I hope, once in a while, my mind is blown because we do have local filmmakers and we've screened their films before. And I bump into them on the street before the film festival. And I say, are you going to come to the festival this year? And they go, well, I don't have a film in the festival. And I go, we screened your film last year. This is a two-way street, right? We need you to show up and support us, whether you have a film in the festival or not. So also because you benefit from it personally by doing that, by connecting with other artists as well. So, again, I just want to stress, and I thank Max, Charles, thank you for having us on today.
Always.
This is a festival for the community, hopefully about the community. We encourage everyone to maybe come see somebody they know to support their filmmaking, like Tanisha here, or to listen to somebody like Ava DuVernay or Nikki Giovanni or John Batiste, or anybody else we have in the festival as well. So thank you both for having us here today. Ilya, do you have anything?
Indeed.
Just want to echo a couple of points. The first, and I think Tanisha said this beautifully, is if you like what we're doing here, then we need you to come and support. And it's not just purely a matter of money, but we want to hear from our community what we're doing right, what we might need to change. And the best way to do that is to show up. And I think Tanisha showed that perseverance through that story. She maybe submitted a film. We consider a lot of movies every year, again, over 1,400 this year, some from the top makers throughout the world. And I think the other thing the festival offers, it's very short. It's easy to miss in a blink of an eye. I understand everyone is busy. But if you hear some of these names, these Oscar winners, these incredible artists that are traveling in from truly all over the world to be here with you, try to come. This is not the same experience you're going to get if you can catch some of these movies on Netflix in a few months or years or in another theater. You're not going to get it with Ava DuVernay in person. I can practically guarantee you that. And if you like that kind of thing, then come. And if you don't like something we're doing, also come and let us know. Hey, I'd love to see you go in another direction. Can't promise how that'll be, but we'll at least hear you out. We want this festival to be of the community, and I think we are constantly shifting and evolving. Doesn't mean we're always getting it 100% right. But I think the best thing to do is, if you believe this should be in your community, come. And just lastly, it's sort of logistically, we mentioned a couple times, but in case you missed it, the best way to do is to go on our website, virginiafilmfestival.org. You have everything there, the trailers, access to tickets, answers to questions. You can see the entire lineup. We only touched on a small piece of it today, virginiafilmfestival.org. You can also go to our theaters, Violet Crown or Paramount or Cobreth, and visit the box offices, pick up some of the print materials. The festival is October 25th to 29th, and I do really hope people take the opportunity to come.
Indeed, thank you. And Tanisha had one last word, and then Max will take us to break.
And I just want to tell the community, we often complain that we have nothing to do. Ava DuVernay, Nikki Giovanni, Jean Batiste, they are coming to Charlottesville. These are Black creatives, Black artists. These are Black legends. And if we don't fill that room, then nobody can complain to me that we don't have anything to do.
There you go.
Because oftentimes we like to say, well, they don't include us. We're being included, that we're not being excluded, and then we don't show up. So please show up. And I'm not saying that just for my film. I'm encouraging you to go to those films. Even if you miss mine, go to those films. I purchased a ticket for the Sunday night show and I can't go, and I'm happy to give it to somebody. So whoever comments or likes on In My Humble Opinion talk show, I will pick someone to give that ticket to on Sunday, because my time of my show runs into that show. So I want to make sure that we support and that we show up and that we don't complain because it's there. We have things to do. We just need to start showing up the way we show up for other things.
There you go.
Show up. It's not always going to be free. Show up, please.
Thank you. Look at Tanisha coming through with the on-air giveaway. Gotta love it.
Tanisha, thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on your film. Can't wait to come watch. And thank you to our friends with the Virginia Film Festival.
Absolutely.
And we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more conversation on IMHO.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning into In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
Abiyoyo Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
Abiyoyo Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
Abiyoyo Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
Yeah. Miss Max, Sir Charles, back like we never left. In the booth in the building. I am HO Talk Show. Tell a friend, because we are live and direct right about now. Just midway through the show, we're gonna keep giving the people what they want, Miss Max. And so I've been enjoying this thing so far, and we just gonna kick it up another notch because we got some first time guests. Give it up for the first time guests of IMH show. That's always is just as lovely as when you get folks who want to return and come back. But when you got the first timers here live on air with us, that is nothing but a blessing. Because that means you still yet growing.
Yeah, always glad to have new guests, new conversations. You nervous? Don't be nervous.
I have been on the radio before.
Yeah. Okay. But you know what though? Radio should be easier than stage though, right? Because like they just hear you on stage, like they're examining everything.
Well, it's true. It's true. You're extremely exposed. That's why I think it is an incredibly difficult art form because of that.
Yeah, yes indeed. So we are joined by none other than some friends of ours that's behind the stage play Abiyoyo. We're joined by Xavier Taylor and also Jessica Harris. Jess, can you hear us? Are you good?
I can. Good to be with y'all.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. And Jess, we got to have you back on as well too, because you are a jack of so many trades. I didn't even know until this play how involved in the arts that you were. And then you and I sparked a conversation about the work you're doing out in Fluvanna as well. Which feel free to plug that as well. While we got you. Sure. Yeah. But thank you. So Abiyoyo. Whoever wants to kick it off, like give us the backdrop because when I looked it up.
Well, who are you?
Yeah.
And what do you do?
So
let's start there.
Good point. Good point.
That's always good. So
Xavier Taylor.
So my name is Xavier. I am the composer and creator of Abiyoyo, the story song musical, which is, if you want to go back, it is based on a folklore story that was created by Pete Seeger, who is a very famous folk singer, folk artist. But he created this story after some time that he spent in South Africa, where he discovered this folk song that did have its own story around it, but he sort of made it something a little bit more personal. But the story in itself is only about 12 pages. But what I always say is what I love most about this story, it's a fairly popular children's book. If you look up, it was fairly well known from being on Reading Rainbow. So anyways, but I was always intrigued by this storybook because it was the first storybook that I saw that set Black characters in this sort of fairy tale world with magic wands and spirits. But it was also even more impactful that it was a father and a son going on this journey together to save their community from this giant, even though the community pushes them away at first. So there's so many levels being touched on in this story that I thought it really sung on its own. And I was sort of surprised that no one else had turned it into a musical because it seemed to have so much life to it.
Yeah. Thank you, Max. I was so excited. I was getting ahead of myself. Yeah. So before we go deeper into that, because I definitely got some questions, but Jess, Ms. Harris, you can formally introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's good to be with all of you and so thrilled that we're able to share about this project this afternoon. So I'm Jess Harris. I'm a local director and researcher. And just to your point, Charles, I feel like I wear so many hats, but it's great to be here representing Abiyoyo. So I've been thrilled to work with Xavier on this piece as the director of this staged reading. And we've been rehearsing over the past 2 months to bring it to life. So Xavier obviously has done the bulk of the work in composing and writing, and it's such a beautiful show. But I've gotten to come in and work with some really talented local actors of all ages. We have an intergenerational cast telling this story. And so we've been rehearsing and putting it on its feet and getting to share it with audiences this upcoming Wednesday. So I've been so thrilled to be a part of this process.
Awesome. That is good stuff. And so, and as I was saying before, Max so rudely interrupted me.
Sorry.
So when I looked it up, when I was trying to, research the background of this musical, Abiyoyo seems to have a pretty deep depth to it, like as far as it being a part of folklore and that term, you know, the word, that name itself. Like, so Xavier, can you give us a little more background into like sort of what led you to it and sort of like the real meaning behind that name itself, Abiyoyo?
So Abiyoyo itself is a fairly large character in the show. Not really. They are the giant that comes and crushes this town. And for me, one of the main sort of points of naming the show this, and I think it's important of naming the story this, is sometimes we have to call out our giants by their name, right? So there's a lot of power in that name and just by calling them out by it. So that's where that title and that character comes from. They're fairly, they have a relatively small appearance in the show. The show is really about the father and the son and the family and this this journey to find connection with each other and their community. But like you said, there's a lot of depth to the story. In some ways, it very much is an allegory for the apartheid. If you really want to get into the core of the story, but
yeah,
there's a lot going on there. To your point,
yeah. And so just like when you you know, see that script, right, and I'm like, what was it that attracted you to it? Like, is it, you know, what Xavier was mentioning as far as like the depth of it, or was it more surface level of just wanting to work, you know, with Xavier and it being a, you know, great opportunity?
Well, first of all, anyone would jump at the chance to work with Xavier, so that's just assumed, right? That's assumed. But I think when you look at the piece itself, the thing that struck me, there was two things in particular that really excited me about this piece. The first is Xavier has really expanded this story to not just be about the boy and his father, but to be about the family unit, to be about the village, to be about the people and the ways in which we process grief and journey through love and loss. And to his point, really overcome our giants, right? And I think that's a story that resonates so deeply with me and resonates so deeply with our community. But the second piece that's really exciting, right? This is an all Black show. It is a Black musical. It features a variety of musical genres that have influenced his work, right? We got gospel, we got traditional African sort of spirituals, right? And there's such a blending of worlds. And I think our community really has a need for more representation on stage and to have a safe space to create and tell our authentic stories, right? We're so thankful to be working with the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center to put this on and lean into that Black storytelling and the ways that we can see ourselves portrayed on stage and viewing that more expansively. So it's totally been awesome working with Xavier, and the story itself, I think, is so important in this time. And getting to work with Black actors from Charlottesville, many of whom have been here for years, some of whom are just entering into our community. It really blends not just the narrative itself, but in the way that we're portraying it. It's just been so powerful to see come to life.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So, Xavier, can you give us like a little sneak peek of how you help to bring the story to life? What should we expect?
So what you should expect is the story that you're relatively familiar with, as I laid out before, the father and the son. They get kicked out of their town. They find a moment with each other, and they come back and they save their town from the giant. What I added into it was depth and understanding. To me, when I saw these two characters that seemed to be acting out, that's what I saw. As I saw two men acting out. Why? And I thought there has to be someone missing. What is the thing that is missing between them? That connection that is making them act this way. And that's where I created two other characters. One is Zila, who is the mother character who has passed. And she returns in the show as a ghost to sort of guide and help them. And then I needed someone there in the very beginning as well, an Auntie Wafa, and she guides Azizi at the beginning to sort of give him some courage. But what you'll really see this. What I've added is this this authenticity to the story and to the music. I've really taken a lot of time trying to create a very authentic soundscape using a music in a way that's not really used in musical theater. You typically don't hear stories being told musically in this way, and that was something that I really wanted to bring to it, besides just this like 4-measure folk song that we all know. I needed more depth to it. I needed more life to it.
Yeah. Now, so you guys are making me think. How did Charlottesville, like, how did Charlottesville, being what it is, and all that's that's happening here, whether in recent past or currently, go into wanting to do this here? You know what I mean? Like, are there any reflections of our community or any events that happen that like spawned you to be like, we need to do this in Charlottesville at the Jefferson?
Well, for me, it was as a story. I mean, I've lived now in Charlottesville for about 6 or 7 years, so I've gone through a few different things that have happened here in town. This is, I mean, really, it is a reflection of those things. This is me knowing that there needs to be more focus and stories being told like this, because there's not, and there are clearly cases where people are trying to take these types of stories as a type of knowledge and education about culture and Blackness out of society. I wanted to give it a platform where it's shown, being in Charlottesville, I think, is just it's a happy coincidence that we happen to be here, to be sharing this message with this community that we live in, and I think that the community will respond very well. I mean, it's a great story. It's a great story. The music's great. And we've had our own giants here in town that we've needed to push past or push through or call by their names, and people are doing it, and we're taking those steps.
So I have a question. You're creative, so I'm hopefully you pick up my line of thinking. But so when you talk about the sound that you have created to go with this musical, is that just a personal? I had a thought or an idea, or is it's the sound came to you as a result of whatever feeling or happenings or things that are going on here, and the sound that matches the events or activities, or there's the sound is meant to create or invoke a certain particular type of feeling that you've kind of already defined in creating that sound.
Well, the sound sort of came to me. It was a mix. I am traditionally a classical musician.
Okay.
And one of the things that I've always found as a classical musician is one lack of actual Black American ness in classical music and work. So that was one of the main things that called to me. And also another issue that I've always come across is translating the African sound into classical music. It always comes out a little too cheesy or a little too polished or a little too Disney, if you will.
Okay.
Instead of being true to the grittiness of it. Sometimes it is a little bit hard to follow, or it can sound a little bit chaotic, or it can feel overwhelming. But those are all the emotions that go into it. That brings the rawness, the realness to the sound, the layering of all the different sounds and rhythms, and the repetition. That's a big thing. Some people want to pull back and away from the repetition. But as I did more and more research about what it was that I thought was the authenticity that I was looking for, it was that repetition. It was that repeated message that sort of drones it and beats it into your heart, and you so almost begin to vibrate with that repetition as it continues. And it's really it's a powerful thing in the music.
Wasn't Beethoven or Mozart Black?
There's conversation that Beethoven was of mixed race.
Okay. I ask questions like that, Max, because there's always people in history, that like they tried to get over on us,
But
they were
but
passive.
I'm once again, it's been covered up so much. I couldn't tell you the truth.
Because if you say
held
it,
my hand
Xavier,
on
we're gonna
that.
believe it. So if you say it's black, then it's black.
So Jess, I want to give you opportunity to answer that as well. Knowing that you are a person of the community, like what impact do you hope that this makes on Charlottesville, and even how do you think Charlottesville may see itself in this?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many layers to this piece. And one thing that I want to say too, just to that last point, Xavier spoke so beautifully about the power of sound. And there's also been so much research that we've poured into this, right? We shared with our actors so much context and history to give them that grounding, because part of what we hope audiences leave with understanding in this piece is that understanding of where we've been and where we've come from, right? I mean, it's a diasporic show that speaks to the power of our history and our ancestry that extends far beyond these shores, and how are we connecting and hearkening back with that experience. So that's what I hope folks leave with is, you might not get a history lesson in this piece, but you'll feel it, you'll experience it. I think the arts impact us in a way that textbooks and written materials can't, right? And we feel it and we leave changed in some way. So I hope that folks leave with that. To your point about, why Charlottesville and why now, I mean, I think to your point, we as a community have been through so much. Folks are quick to say it's 2017, but we know it's been longer than that. And we know there's been a complex history in Charlottesville for centuries and for generations. And this piece by no means is going to address all that, but I think we can see some parallels, right? There's ways that we see a figure of authority in this show acting in unjust ways, right? Or we see a community that's isolating individuals for no real valid reasons other than we don't like those individuals, right? These are things that we're seeing play out in this story. And these are in many ways things that we've seen play out in Charlottesville. And so while we don't make that direct connection, I think you can make those ties. And the piece that is the balm for that is seeing our people on stage telling that story and seeing them tell it in a way that's authentic, right? This isn't someone coming in and telling us where we've been. We are telling it ourselves. And the way that we shape these narratives is so healing and so cleansing. And just to share in the joy of a live performance, right? We hope audiences come in and leave with different interpretations, different experiences, different emotions, because that's what theater does and what theater does so well and what music does so well. So at the end of the day, I hope, we don't expect folks to leave and have it all cured and all solved. But if you leave impacted in some way or touched in some way, or, seeing your fellow community members on stage is also a form of reparation and reclamation, right? Seeing ourselves telling our stories. So that's what I hope folks leave with. And I think that's why it's so important to do it in Charlottesville today.
Yeah. And we are talking about Abiyoyo, a story song musical, premiering in Charlottesville October 25th at 8:00 at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. And as we said, we're talking to the writer, composer Xavier Taylor and director Jessica Harris. And before we let y'all go too, a couple of things. Like I want people to get familiar with you all, definitely when it comes to folks maybe wanting to get involved, they may be interested in the arts, to know what services you offer. But before you two kind of go into your backgrounds and whatnot, talk about the Jefferson School, because I always want to give people this platform, Max, of realizing how important the Jefferson School is. Because of course you two individuals are important, with your work, the way you're representing our diaspora, through the arts. But to have this at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center, tell the folks why there and what the center means to you.
So for me, I think it was once again lots of happy coincidences, if you will. I was reached out to if I wanted to take part in the symposium. And this was several months ago, and I was like, well, I have this piece that I think might work. I don't know if we'll have time to make it work. It may work. And I'm actually very, very happy. I don't think there's any other place that I would have wanted to do it or could have done it around town. It really is sort of a nice home or community. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah. And
did you go to the art school up there in Baltimore?
not in the city. I went to the county version
Okay.
in Towson called Carver Center for the Arts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Great times.
Mhm.
Sorry, I totally lost my track of thought.
See what you did, man?
I'm sorry. You were talking about this being a good place to tell the story, or the
Yeah.
Jefferson Center,
So, and there's so many. I mean, there's already a regular community of Black theater there as well that is very, very strong in as far as them being a voice in our community that helps tell our stories. So I think it was a great place to start our journey for this production. Yeah. Jess.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that's something that's so special about the Jefferson School, right? I mean, the history of the Jeff School is to honor and preserve the rich heritage and legacy of the Black community in Charlottesville, and I think that that's what this piece does. Is it's able to capture the rich culture and history of the African peoples and of Black culture more broadly. So again, I have been connected to the Charlottesville Players Guild at the Jefferson School, which is their sort of Black theater arm, and for a number of years. And so it's nice to be able to be a part of this special symposium that they're offering on August Wilson, who is an iconic Black playwright. I'm sure many of you are familiar. But it's really nice to be able to tie into something that is so powerful and offers such a great legacy in August Wilson's work, and to be able to provide a new piece and a new perspective in this day and age. So it's not just about looking back on the past and honoring a remarkable artist. It's about how are we making parallels and connections to the artists of today. So I'm so thrilled to be a part of that symposium, and also to, the history of the Jefferson School being the one Black high school in the city until it closed at 51, and being able to sort of reopen as this cultural center has been remarkable. So I'm so thrilled in all the ways, not just the historical context, but the artistic context as well, to offer our pieces as part of the symposium.
Yeah, wow, very well said. Thank you for saying that. And you actually alluded to something. So Jessica, give the people, your background of your work as far as, what else you do in the arts. Outside of Abiyoyo, if people want to reach out and get involved, get some training from you and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks. Yeah, I am an arts educator and a director in the community. So I run a nonprofit program in Fluvanna County called Empowered Players that offers free theater and arts classes to students of all ages and to community members as well. We focus on bringing the arts to our communities and empowering our youth through the arts and connection to place. And so we offer classes year round. We have performances year round. All of our classes are in Fluvanna, but I also do a number of teaching workshops and opportunities. I really believe in the arts as a tool for change and as a tool for discovering our true selves. And so I'm always down to collaborate with anyone who shares that belief and who believes in the power of theater in particular to tell stories. So definitely, if you want to learn more about Empowered Players, visit us on the web, www.empoweredplayers.com, to learn more. But again, I also just am so thrilled that Abiyoyo can be part of the larger cultural landscape in Charlottesville, because it ties so closely to my belief in the arts as a tool to inspire, educate, and empower.
Mm-hmm. That is good stuff. Awesome. And I wanted you to have the opportunity too, Xavier, to let folks know about
what else am I doing.
How do we prepare to see the musical? Should we read the folklore before we get there?
You can read the children's book. It's not a daunting read. It's about 12 pages, and the words don't take up about so much of the page. It's about a sentence on each page. So I think it is something that you could read before you come, but if you don't want to, you just want to come and enjoy the story, I think that's something that you can also do as well. As far as some other things that I'm doing around the city, I work quite closely with DMR Adventures over in Belmont. I teach voice and music lessons and songwriting regularly around town to quite a few students. I have a lot of students all over the place. But that is what I'm doing when I am not composing musicals, if you will.
Good stuff. Now, how do people reach out to you as well? If
So,
they want to,
if you'd like to reach out to me, you can reach out to me through the Abiyoyo website. Is always a great way to do that. That's abiyoyothemusical.com. Very straightforward. And then you can also check out our Instagram at Abiyoyo the Musical as well. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Awesome, good stuff. What you think, Miss Max?
It's good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I hope we show up and show out for this musical. I really do. Sounds like it's going to be awesome presentation. So thanks again. We're going to take a quick break, right, Charles?
I think so. Unless, if all hearts and minds are clear, you guys feel like you pitched it enough?
I think so. I don't know, Jess.
Any last words?
No, thank you all so much for having us. Again, we are so thrilled. Getting to offer just even a staged version of this musical is going to be really impactful, and we can't wait to see, what the future holds for this piece. So thanks for supporting Black art in Charlottesville, and come out and see us at the festival on Wednesday.
That's right. That's right.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, Black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More Black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that Black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially Black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
AMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. IMHO Talk Show. And excuse me, I didn't mind my manners. Y'all can go ahead and grab the headphones if you want. But you don't really need them. It's just so you can hear us direct. So it's totally up to you. Whatever makes you more comfortable. I'm just in radio mode. So yeah. But Sir Charles here, Miss Max, IMHO Talk Show online, WVAI 101 Jam, Charlottesville's #1 for R&B, hip hop, and the classics. And yeah. So you got time. You got time to still tell a friend if they haven't tuned in. And remember, you always can revisit the show after IMHO Talk Show. And we are just so delighted to close out today's guest with none other than some newly acquainted friends of ours. Sort of our sisters in the media as well. Some of y'all may know, Sarad. I know Sarad Davenport has shared a reel yesterday, so the full episode will be available soon. Where we went on this local TV talk show and talked about the Seville inclusive media, in my humble opinion, Vinegar Hill, and what have you. And so you also may remember Miss June. She was on our panel that we did for the Soul of Seville Festival. And so we're talking about none other than Let's Talk on Charlottesville's public access station. They have a wonderful talk show, and they are here to talk a little bit more with us so everybody can get fully acquainted to the great work that they do. And so I am joined by none other than June Bates, Sharika Turner, Nicole Dickerson. Ladies, thank y'all for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So let's go ahead and just get started, get people a little more familiar with y'all. We can just go down the line. You can introduce yourself, give folks your name and, your background as far as how you got involved, like what brought you to the Let's Talk team.
Hello, I'm Sharika Turner. Media is not or was not in my plans, but as you see, God had something different for me. It started with Nicole, June, and I reading a book. And from reading that book, we were really inspired to do something more and more actively in our community. And with that, June came to us one day and was like, hey, let's do a talk show. And we're like, oh, okay. And we're here now.
There you go.
Yeah.
And Nicole?
I am Nicole Dickerson. And so like Sharika said, we started off reading an awesome book together. We called ourselves starting a book club amongst ourselves because we are long-term friends. And so we did that. And the book was inspiring you to go to new levels, to try different things. And me also, I am not a person that likes to be out in front. I kind of like to be behind the scenes. But of course, God grows and extends you into different areas. And I know that I have, been called to do a little bit more to push out of my comfort zone. And so when June approached us about doing the talk show, normally I would have ran, but it was like, no, it's time to do something different. I always had a heart to talk to people about things that are needed, things that they maybe need, or giving out resources to just help the community, help people. So that was the reason I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this.
Thank you.
All right, June. So it's left up to you to tell us about this book. What's the name of this book?
Oh gosh, it is T.D. Jakes' daughter.
Oh,
was that it?
Yeah, it was that.
We done read.
We
two
read it.
books. Keep me straight. So yes, it was Joel Osteen's book about Next Level. And for those of you who know Joel Osteen, he just speaks the truth and he just speaks life, and it just encouraged us to get out of our comfort zone. I had already stepped out of my comfort zone because I have a show with Pastor Lehman Bates from here in Charlottesville. It's called Breaking the Chains. And so when he had approached me about doing the show with him, I was just like Nicole and Sharika, a deer in the headlights, like, are you really asking me to do this? And so once I got in there and just realized, wow, we have a voice and there's so many different methods and avenues that you can take to share your voice. I was like, wait a minute. We as women, we talk about stuff all the time, things that other people have questions to. We ask the same questions and we try and dig deeper to get those answers. So during the pandemic, we were like, okay, let's read a book. We read the Joel book and that just encouraged us. And it was like, you know what? We need to get our voices out there. And so I was just led by the Spirit to say, let's do this show with us three women from our perspective as, women of color, just to share more with our community. And so we were just fortunate enough to be able to start that in 2021. And so here it is 2023, and we're going into another year and, new avenues. So we are grateful and appreciative of all of that. And, we're all natives of Charlottesville. So I think we also come with a different perspective, just having grown up in the area, grown up in the community, and just seeing the different changes that have happened over the years. And so certainly with Charlottesville being on the forefront of national news, it's much more than, how people see us, in this very small lens. Let's share our very personal story.
Gotcha. Now, so the Let's Talk platform, and I guess before we even get to the show itself, the book club first, right? Like, so because I'm trying to draw that connection as well, so like, so y'all were friends, was like, I'm reading good stuff about we start this book club. So then that connection there, so I imagine that the conversation that you had must have been pretty in depth, in addition to Pastor Bates, nudging. Yeah, right, but I can imagine, like, you probably was like, man, like the world needs to hear these conversations. Is that
Absolutely.
accurate?
Yeah. I think because it was stretching us. It was, you think, okay, I'm in this situation because of the way, I grew up, or, this is where it has always been. This is the, the way my family has always been, but that's not your limit. You have to think outside of that. Just because, oh, well, you grew up in poverty doesn't mean that you have to stay in poverty. There's new levels that you can reach. You have to push outside of your comfort zone to get to those levels. And we were just talking about, okay, if we can sit around and talk about things that we can do to push ourselves to new levels, or things and resources that we can go after to help us, grow and be better people, then this is stuff that other people need to hear too. And we can bring these resources and these conversations and we started having like hard conversations about, just like you said, stuff that's going on in the community and in the world. And these are things like people want change. Talk about it, bring it to the forefront, because a lot of times people don't know. People don't, really, you hear about something and then it's gone, and then you just kind of left your mind. So being a part of that change and talking about it and bring it, to the people, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, and it's a Christian based show, right? Like the foundation is to speak from a biblical perspective. Is that correct?
Well, I will say, I believe that we all have testimonies. And so for the three of us, we are absolute believers in Jesus Christ. We just happen to believe that we have a story to share and to tell. And so when people see us, they're automatically going to see Christ in us. So we recognize, anyone who's watching the show may not be a believer, but we're going to be talking about everyday things that will apply to everyone over time. And, they might start to say, oh, these women, they pray at the end of their show. Oh, they, share their testimony. So it will, if nothing else, it'll cause people to start asking questions who might not believe. So for us, that's what it's about, is just not only sharing our experiences, but also sharing the gospel. So in a roundabout way, yes.
As Jim was saying, like, we have different perspectives. We come from different parts and ways of life. And for our conversations, we're going to reach 10 different people. She got 10, I got 10, Nicole got 10. And our conversations would go to us really thinking about what is the root to why we did what we did. What happened? Why did we choose what we choose in our life? And it just wanted to be on a broader level of thinking, okay, I can do that. She did that. Okay, Nicole did that. Well, let me think about that. How can I do something different in my life?
So let's talk real quick about that process of really being committed to talking about particular topics authentically and completely transparent, right? Because that is truly a level of commitment. You got your peers watching, people that you may know watching. There's an element of just worrying about the judgment, or how open do I be, or how much do I withhold? But on the other hand, you do want to stay with the focus of your show, which is to have real tough conversations and to help someone in the process. And so what was that like for the three of you to go through collectively or individually, as far as being transparent with your flaws, being vulnerable, while still trying to maintain your level of strength and dignity while you're showing your weaknesses at the same time on a TV show?
It's a stretch.
Yes.
Because again, like for me especially, I don't like being in the forefront. I don't put me behind the scenes. I don't like being in front of crowds. I don't like public speaking. But again, God's going to stretch you because you can't stay on one level, and you don't know what you're going through that may help somebody else. So when we, give our testimonies and we say, okay, well, this is something that I went through in life, and this is how, it helped me, or God helped me through this. Right. That somebody watching our show can be like, oh, you know what? I was dealing with that exact same thing. And I'm believing that God's going to help me through this the way he helped you through it. And some of the talk, like we had a show on like teens and, dealing with, it was like mental health and just, everyday things that teens go with. And we all parent, our own ways and stuff. And we have experts on our show that come in. And so we had a lady that come in who deals with teens and in the schools and things like that. And so, I had one of my daughters on the show with me, and, she was talking and she would ask my daughter questions and she would ask me questions. And then, she wouldn't always agree with me. So we learn also in the process. So I think it's a win-win situation. We're growing and we're learning, where we're bringing our testimony and, information to people where they can learn and grow as well.
Yeah, because the reality, we are still works in progress. Absolutely. And so yes, and I love the show because we have the opportunity to get very intimate, share experiences that I know our viewers can relate to. I mean, we've had we've celebrated Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We've had speakers on. We've had, a friend come on the show, share her very personal story. And as a friend of that friend, we were witnesses to some of the things and challenges. So we could speak to those things. And I just believe because we are doing what we have been called to do, that everything will blossom in its very perfect way, in the way that God intended it to happen. So, but it's difficult balancing that, because people can look at you sideways, be like, "Oh, she went through that," or "Oh, she thinks that way." Mm-hmm. So it just is what it is.
Yeah. But you're helping if you just help one person, look at me sideways, look at me differently. Right. But if somebody else can relate and I can help somebody else through something, it's worth it.
And as June was saying, it's really about alignment. We all followers of Christ, and the Holy Spirit guides and leads us. So who are we to say, "Oh no, we're not going to do that," when God's given us the assignment to go forth and help his children?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look, maybe I should just step out the conversation, because I feel like Max and y'all could have like a whole show just by yourselves, Like, y'all should have Max on. I'm gonna go ahead and plug that.
Yes, please come on.
But I'm also gonna be a troublemaker. I'm gonna break the ice. Which one of y'all are the fiery ones? Which one got to be reminded?
The one in the middle.
Stay in the spirit. I didn't want to call her out, but because y'all are very sophisticated. Y'all are very sharp, great at what you do. Like, but I want to sort of break the ice and be like, which one y'all got to rein in sometimes and be like, stay in the spirit, sister. Stay in the spirit.
We're all pretty good about
We're
that.
pretty mellow with it. But if you're passionate about what you're speaking, I think it could go through all three of us. June have a pose with the speaking.
A reasonable one.
Yeah.
Who's the mama of the group?
As that way.
Really?
Yeah. Cole is definitely reasonable. Listen, her gift is mercy.
Mm-hmm.
We learned this over the weekend, this women's event we went to. She is that person. Like, she is very solid, very much a peacemaker, I believe. So.
And who's the mama of the group?
Mama June.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's our production,
She definitely keeps us in line and in order, keeping things moving.
Who says things that you don't want them to say, but it's good to be said?
Sharika.
Listen, sometimes it just has to come out.
Yeah. Agree. Okay.
So give us a little more background in the show, like when it comes to Charlottesville. As you said, you all have home ties here. So I totally get the personal perspectives and like the shared life experiences and whatnot. But also when it comes to the city of Charlottesville, because and how long has the show been on again?
Since 2021.
So all right, so you pretty much started in COVID.
Yeah,
right. Like so
that was the precipice was COVID.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all sitting in the house in our sweat clothes, just trying to figure out what's next, and it was like, okay, let's just do something different. So COVID was definitely was the catapult for this thing.
Right. And so COVID, but just locally in Charlottesville, like when you look at things that the city goes through and is going through, like how do you like to apply that to your work, or do you get that specific? Do you try to stay away from what some may say politics, or like the activism side of it, or like do you delve into local topics? You know what I mean?
We haven't necessarily had any shows, centered around politics, but what I can say, and I'm gonna give a shout out. So Ziana Bryant is one of our very close friends' daughter. And so, seeing Zai and what she does in the community inspires us. We're like looking on the sidelines at the work that she does. It's like, wow, look at the change agent that she is. And so it makes us talk like, okay, so if we have this younger generation doing these great things in Charlottesville, nationally, and then worldwide, what can we do as, this generation? And so while we haven't specifically talked about politics or activism per se. I will say we are happy to support other people of color and bring people of color on our show who are guests and who are experts in the community. So we've had Juanika Howard on the show. We've had Nicole's brother, who is a real estate agent in Northern Virginia, but he's from Orange, Richard Johnson. We've had Aaron Carter, who is,
Aaron Simmons.
Aaron Simmons, who is in banking. So we try to support, our people in the community who are doing great things. So, that's one way that we've done it.
Yeah. And I think too, we look at like the minority community, and we, like when we did the show with Richard and Aaron, it was about, buying a home and stuff like that. And we had a show about finances, and that, like, the minority community, a lot of times, like, the resources that are available or just general information, it's not readily known. Like, it's not, we're not taught on finances like we should be, in schools, or like in the minority community. A lot of times it's not always taught like it needs to be in family as growing up. It's not something that you really see in front of you. So we try to bring information that you may not readily have, like, that we think that some parts of our community may not always have access to, or may not really think about, and we just want to bring that to the forefront. Like, hey, you're dealing with this, look at this resource, or maybe you can go out here, and find something that's going to help you through your situation. You don't have to stay stuck or anything like that. So we're just trying to bring, and then like what we did, like the mental health and things like that. Minority community, again, it's like a stigma against mental health. So just bringing those conversations to the forefront is something that's important. It's something that we can, make changes. We don't have to stay stuck in depression and things like that. It's something that there's resources out there. There's help. There's other people going through it. You're not by yourself.
So outside of that, how does being a woman of color, because I imagine it matters to me, being a woman of color representing us on this show, how does being a woman of color impact what you feel your role outside of God's calling to do this show, impact your role, or on the show? How does it influence it? Or what do you feel like maybe your obligation is as a woman of color representing other minority women on the show? Or is it not that? Because listen, the answer can be it's not about that for us, right? I'm just asking.
I don't think we looked at it as being a woman of color. Yeah. We looked at it as being women.
Yeah.
Okay. But for me, I feel like we don't have a lot of leaders in our culture, in the world today. Okay. And if I am okay with having that conversation, why not me? Okay. Why not Cole? Why not June? Somebody has to step up. Yeah. And I just feel like we lack that today.
Yeah. And if you can inspire somebody else to step up, because step up scared. That's what I did.
We did.
Stepped up scared, didn't know what we were getting into. But again, there's a need. There's a need to help our community. We always talk about what's going wrong in the community, what's not working. Be a part of the change.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense to me. And so let's talk about some of these other topics y'all get into. What are we talking about on Let's Talk?
Oh man, we talk about things that matter, like home ownership, financial stability. How many people have a phenomenal talent, whether they're an awesome cook, awesome chef, great housekeeper. Take those skills, start your own business. We had someone from the state of Virginia on our show who talked about how to start your own business. And I feel like it's those sort of topics that we need to talk about to encourage people in the community to harness their gifts and use them to really make a future for you and the generations that are to come. And so that's really what we want to do. We had, y'all remind me, the young lady who was disabled from Orange.
Tanisha.
Trinika Lee.
Yeah.
Trinika Lee. So we had a show. She is a young lady from Orange, and she is permanently disabled. She had both of her legs amputated. She lived that life for many years, and then she had her arms amputated. So just hearing her story and how she is still making positive change in her community was amazing. And so those are the types of stories that we want to highlight to encourage our viewers that really anything is possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. And like, give me a little background. Give the listeners the background of what it took, to even get this started. Because I think that could be an encouragement. Because not only were we going through the height of COVID, but still being like Black women within this space, and you talk about the fear, like like stepping out on faith and things of that sort. Like I think that can be encouraging, like to see the fruits of it now, but what you went through during that time to even get it started, like to even convince yourself, right? To
that's the hardest
I'll
part
give it a try.
is thinking that you can do it and then saying, okay, I will do it. So there's a difference. You're thinking, you're planning, like, okay, one day I might do it, and then making up in your mind that I am going to do this. And for us, once we actually decided that we're going to do it, the process and the logistics was way easy. Just FYI for anyone who wants to do it, we went through CPA TV, which is through the city of Charlottesville. They have a studio on the downtown mall in your place. Annual membership is $50 a year. You can use their studio. They'll record the shows for you. So you don't have to be like a keyboard technical person. You can just say, hey, I want this show to air, and they'll get you going. I mean, it is so simple. You just have to make up in your mind that you're going to do it, and then it just flows and happens. So whether you want to be someone doing a podcast or someone who writes, there are resources out there. Just like we had you and Sarad on the show. Hopefully for some of our viewers who caught y'all, they now know, oh, okay, if I want to write, or if I want to start a podcast, I can reach out to Sarad or Charles. We're trying to make those sort of connections. It's just so easy once you win the war in your mind.
That's it. Win the war in your mind. And then I'll tell you, when you step out on faith, and when you be obedient to what God is calling you to do, when we did that, when she said it was easy, it was literally seamless. And then that you're walking in favor, and God is doing some things, because when I say people were sowing into our lives, they were blessing us. They like, let me take care of this for you. Like when I tell you, we were so blessed in the beginning. So we were grateful for all those who loved on us and sowed into us to help us, get this started. But, not that it was needed, but just because they wanted to. And that's how you know that you're reaching people, and that, God is doing some things, because the blessings flow.
That's right.
And even though we were walking in fear, and sometimes the fear still, I would say for myself, still try to creep back up on me. But after finishing those first couple episodes, we were in the parking lot like, yes, we did it. Like, it was like we won the Super Bowl. And like, we really did this. So for anybody who has a heart, and you have something on your mind, your heart to do something, do not let fear stop you, because I can share some stories where fear was truly trying to take me out, and I'm here on 101.3 Jams today. Right. So do not walk in your faith.
And another thing that is encouraging, which I'm sure you two can relate to, is when you're out in public and someone says, oh, I watched your show, it was so good, or hey, I watched your show, and now I'm getting ready to buy my first home because of your show. And I'm sure you guys have listeners who say, oh man, that was a great conversation. And so we get that, and that just lets us know, okay, it's reaching somebody, it's reaching the people that it needs to reach. So
so what's next? Like, what are the goals? Who's the minister in the group? Because I can feel it. Like, or who has the aspirations?
You guys preach every episode a little bit.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I think we're all called to, encourage others.
It's more encouraging.
What you're sensing, let me just, I have to give a shout out. This past weekend, we were at a women's retreat. There's a women's mentorship program that we participate in, and just the weekend was so awesome. And what you're seeing and feeling is just we were in the presence of God this weekend. We were very intentional about it, and so we just feel that all over us. So if we're going, it's because of that.
But that's a part of our lives too. We seek opportunities on that level all throughout the year to keep us going to the next level with God.
And and I guess like we all are ministers to an extent, right? Like we're all teaching and spreading, right? So but as far as the goals though, the goals, what's next? And this could be the doors that this is open for any of you individually, but also of course as a Let's Talk unit. Is there anything fresh on the press? Fresh off the press that we can break news here, but but just your aspirations. And
I don't know about breaking news, but I know one thing that we have consistently talked talked about is really getting more men of color on the show, talking about the male perspective, whether it's, reducing recidivism, men who have been locked up. How can we stop that cycle? Men's mental health. So we really want to get more men on the show, just talking about men specific topics. Because there's such a great need, but we always ask our listeners and our viewers if they have any suggestions for a show. Like, we want to delve into it. We want to get the experts, because we're not the experts necessarily, but we want to, do our part. So I don't know if there's anything else.
No, I think you hit it. Yeah, definitely with more. And then, just like things that's going on in the community, we try to look at what's happening. We talked a little bit about like the violence and stuff that we were seeing and things like that. So any type of, resources or experts that we can come on that can pour into our community and help them see a different perspective, or shift that into like, okay, instead of, having things go to where it's turning violent, or we're not loving on each other and there's division in the community, how can we come together? And I love some of the things that I've been seeing in the community. So we'll definitely probably try to reach out and connect with some of the people that have been trying to bring the community together and things like that too. Because it's definitely unity. Unity is key, because if not, division is always going to spur out violence and strife, and you don't want division.
Yes, indeed.
So I guess I'm thinking about the days that Charles and I come in here for a live show, and I don't know about him sometimes, but with the things that go on locally, you feeling a little bit defeated. You wondering whether or not what you're doing is making a difference. Your heart is going out to people and individuals that are being impacted negatively. And, I imagine possibly that you all deal with some element of that as well with these topics that you're talking about, and especially being a faith-centered show. But still filled with all the negative, and the relative you just talked to, and the friend that got something going on, and the this and the that. So trying to maintain, keep the faith, stay strong, and all of that, and then be able to still speak to your community, encourage them, sometimes is a balancing act. And I don't know. I mean, you feel free to respond to that if you want to, but I know at least for me, sometimes you're not necessarily putting on face, but you have to sometimes in order to do the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Life's coming regardless of, what you have going on or what you have scheduled. Because I think all of us have had situations where life is lifing, but we have a show to record, so you kind of got to push through that, set that aside, because, again, we are being believers and things like that. We know the enemy's going to come to try to throw you off course, and he's going to, try to, he doesn't want you to reach people. He doesn't want people to be delivered, or, to have something that's going to help them or whatever. So a lot of the times things that you're dealing with is a distraction, and you can't allow that to be a distraction. Even though I might be going through this, at home or at work or, whatever, my kids might be acting like they don't lost their minds, but I'm going to go out here and I'm going to put out this information that I know that's going to help my community. You got to just push past all that.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is great, and it's good to feel like there's a village, and to hear that somebody else is experiencing the same thing that someone who may think they're all on an island by themselves dealing with. And so thank you for what you do, and thank you for the people you reach, and you're probably touching a lot more hearts and minds than you actually know that you are. So thank you.
And what I love too is like when I, meet new people now, as I talk to them and learn more about what they're doing, I'm like, oh man, we need them on the show. Like trying to make those connections and just trying to get more people to know about what others are doing. Because we were talking earlier, one of the issues in this town, even though it's small, there's so many pockets of information that's going out there. If we could maybe like consolidate in a way that we could, at least let all of our efforts be known, like shared, whether it's the older community, middle-aged community, younger generation, how can we all work better together so that all of our information is out there in one place? So,
good stuff. And hopefully we can continue to work together, because again, it was a blessing to have your participation, on a media panel at Soul of Seaville. So, so please let us know however we can assist and we can work together. To keep getting good news out. And so I heard you all talk about, accepting show ideas and things of that sort. So how do folks reach you? How do they reach out and submit those ideas to you?
Well, we're on Instagram at Let's Talk 0300. So feel free to send us a message there. And then also on Facebook at Let's Talk.
Let's Talk.
Yeah, Let's Talk. So check us out. And Nicole and Sharika are also on Facebook. So if you just want to ping them separately, that's also cool too. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Miss Max, you good?
I'm good. I want to thank the host of Let's Talk for joining us, answering our questions, being on the other side of the microphone this time. And like I said, thank you for what you do. We're glad to have you back. So feel free to reach out if you want to join us again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Something's on my heart.
Okay.
I'm gonna put somebody on the spot. Who wants to close us in prayer?
That's not terrible.
Miss June?
Listen, Nicole is on the prayer team at her church, so I don't know why she's up here faking it. She already knows she was told to go on yesterday. So
look.
I am going to volunteer Nicole.
Uh-oh. I mean, but that's good,
Okay.
like she yielded to the captain though, So
Oh, no. She already knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we ready?
You might walk home.
All right. So, Father God, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for your unconditional love that you give us daily. We know that you are at work all the time in our lives, transforming us so we can be out there helping and transforming your people. We just thank you for the honor that you give us to get out in front of your people and speak your word to them, to speak your word to them, Father God. And we thank you for opportunities to connect with additional people in media, to connect with the people out in the communities to spread the word that they need. And we're praying, Father God, that the things that we are doing are reaching the people that they need to reach, and that people are growing and getting the resources that they need. So we just thank you in advance for continued opportunities to grow and reach the people in the community. We thank you that lives are being transformed, that people are having their needs met. And we thank you, Father God, for, in my humble opinion, show for having us on, and we continue many success for that show as well as our show. And we honor you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. There you go.
All right. Y'all enjoy your weekend. It's been,
Thank you
it's
so
been great
much.
having
Thank
you.
you.
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories. More people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
Yeah, buddy. Sir Charles, Miss Max. Yet another great, in my humble opinion, talk show, if I must say so myself.
Good show, good show.
I think so. So, Miss Max,
Mm-hmm.
you hear that music? This is how we're going to close the
today?
show, good people. We're going to close the show in high fashion. None other than segment you've grown to love. It's trademark with Missy LSA, copywritten, so don't copy me. The Ask Max. So we said we got a few minutes left. So let's go ahead and give the people what they want. But we definitely want to thank all today's guests. Thank all y'all for staying tuned. IMHO Talk Show. Make sure you follow up with us online at hashtag IMHO Talk Show. Revisit the show and all that. Reach out to us and give us things like this Ask Max. So we could talk about Israel and Palestine. Maybe a little too, not enough time to go that deep. But text us in the inbox if you want to know what we think. We can talk about Will and Jada.
Oh gosh.
Which
I saw something that said Will and Jada take me out to chat.
But we ain't gonna do that either because this ain't a gossip show. Much blessings to them and their family. But what we do have, Miss Max, that the people want our opinion on is what California has passed called not the Amber Alert.
Okay.
And I think everybody knows what the Amber Alert is. Amber Alert is when everybody's phones go crazy when there is a missing child, so everybody could be on the lookout. So in the same vein, but not the Amber Alert, it's called the Ebony Alert, Miss Max.
Ebony Alert.
Did you know about this Ebony Alert?
I did not.
So apparently, in California, they have passed being the first state to approve what's called the Ebony Alert. So it is what it sounds like. It's specifically to alert people when there is a Black missing child.
Okay.
Now on surface, the reason behind this, let them tell it, is that there's so many missing Black children that have gone unaccounted for.
Okay.
And so the thought is that there has not been enough attention that gets paid to when there's missing Black children. So the idea behind it is let's do something special and specific. So Ms. Max, the question is the Ebony Alert a good idea?
Who gets to push the button on whether or not a child falls in under the category of Ebony Alert? Who decides that?
Good question.
I get the premise of the decision makes sense to me. You can
the data can help to show just how many of our minority children or Black children are disappearing and not being found or whatnot in comparison to their white counterparts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Tell me how you really feel.
I don't know. I mean, part of me says that missing is missing. Child is a child, and when we send out these notices and the justice system and public safety systems should be working equally on behalf of any and all individuals that they are supposed to be providing a service for. And so there should just be an alert, and we take it from there. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that it may be beneficial. It may help them with whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish out of the whole thing. But I also am in the opinion of it is just another factor that further separates us by race, and I'm not a big fan. I don't support that in all aspects of things, and this being one of them. So to me, it just creates a further divide. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. What you think?
Well, the old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And that's what I
bet there was I bet there was a lot of Black folk who supported this too.
Yeah. But just like you said, on the surface, this could be awesome. Like this could be amazing and beneficial if you take it at face value. But the heart of men is where this draws me because like I celebrate us, like I celebrate us to the fullest. Like I like to call our people out for good and privately when it's bad, but to separate us in this regard, I don't know. I don't like I'm skeptical. I hope it helps because we got too many of ours is missing that people don't give the same attention that they do white kids. Let's just put it blunt. But to the hearts of men, why do we need to be singled out? Like you said, missing child should be a missing child. So if the heart of men is already such to where I'm not going to pay as much attention to it if it's a Black child, then if from the jump it's a Black child, then what's going to make you pay attention to it at that point? Like and so in many ways this could backfire because instead of me even looking to see like who this child is, now if it's an ebony alert, then I may be the type of person to have the kind of heart that where I'm just going to ignore it from the jump.
Yeah.
So I hope not.
there's a lot of room for problems to arise out of this, but another thing I think that this kind of speaks to is when our governments or decision makers can have sometimes these knee-jerk reactions, just scrambling for an answer and trying to respond to the will of the public, the people they're there to serve, and sometimes we don't always hit the mark when we act in that way. And I wonder, whether or not there was an element of that in their decision making for this process, So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say we do find out that, Black children go missing at a higher rate. Statistically, we can prove it. And then then these children aren't found safely, returned, etc. Then what?
Yeah.
Then what? What comes next? Because I don't know that this system, this ebony alert, is going to probably prove to a lot of people what they don't already know. But I don't know, being a measure to make Black people or advocates feel heard.
Let's hope for the best.
Yep, that's all you can do.
And if it don't work,
yeah,
don't be ashamed to fix it.
Yeah.
All right, Miss
You think
Max.
Charlottesville should implement something like that?
You, say what?
You think Charlottesville? I'm being funny.
Oh,
I'm being funny. I'm being real
something
funny.
like it, whatever will help. If it
Yeah,
helps,
yeah.
let's implement something like it. But this may not be it.
Yeah,
yeah. But thank you, Miss. Go ahead and take us home, Miss Max, so the people can join that Soul Lounge with none other than Clee Logan.
Yeah, so I can't end a show without thanking our listening audience. We appreciate you. We thank you for tuning in every Sunday, and we hope you've enjoyed today's show. Feel free to contact us with your discussion topics, or to recommend guests, or if you like to come on the show for one reason or another, reach out. We value your opinion, and we definitely want you to be engaged with us. You're the third seat in this room. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for the support. And that's it. Until next time, really take care of each other. Be safe. Be blessed.